Between 1948 and 1983, the Wickses ran sheep in between Riggins, Idaho and McCall, Idaho. We took a trip back into that country to see some of the places where they camped and hear some of the stories from when they were in there. We had my dad, uncle, brother, nephew, and son to go in and check it out with us. All right, we're at one of the sheep camp locations here, and we are trying to find evidence of the old camp. Looking for old tent poles. They used to carry canvas wall tents, and when they had the poles, they just shoved them up underneath a tree, standing up so it'd stay dry, and they'd last for years and years. We had two lower trails that went to a draw and got snowed out. We couldn't get across, so we went to a higher trail. We're headed up to Paradise Lake Camp to check that spot out.
Him right here, I mean this little ridge runs right down. Trail goes over here in this low spot, right down where that water's running, right down the bottom.
There's a trail down there?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a horse trail.
Really?
Goes right down through there. Right down the bottom, right down through there, and you get around that, where that ridge comes in, is where we camped, and there's 4 lakes that sit in there.
Carrie Lakes?
Yep, John, Mary, Gay, and Piper.
Goat Lake right over there, Bill? Or
Goat Lake is the other side of that ridge.
So the sheep would just span out over that hillside over there? Or like, I don't see a whole lot of feed.
Well, when they get here in the 3 or 4 weeks, there's more feed. But yeah, you could start them right up. They'd work their way right up through that country right there.
Really?
Yep. If you had them down the bottom, start them up there, they'd be up here at night.
See that big point?
Yeah.
That's where we came off the hill and came down in there. Around that ridge.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
The far rock is Lake Brick Point, and you come back in the saddle just out of sight. And there's a trail that goes right into the bottom, the other side of that rocky ridge, and then comes right up the bottom.
That was the Walters range, and they went to Cleveland Creek with them.
And one year we were down there, a couple of Forest Service rangers come in there, and they got as far as camp, and they couldn't find how the trail went out of there. So we had to show them where the trail went on down.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You see that kind of a little rock slide thing that comes off the top in there, that's kind of open.
Uh-huh.
right in there, your mother and I come off the top, and there's a camp right in the bottom. That's not right. On down around the bend is where it was. The other side of that ridge that runs off, we come into the bottom, and we were coming up the bottom with a pack string, and we ran into a snow slide that had come off of there, and we spent probably a half a day cutting the trail out so we could get on up through there. And there's a camp in the bottom, right in the bottom down around there. I don't remember the name of it, but one time there was a guy from back east that your grandfather sent up here with us, and up here in the rock bluffs, there was a pretty nice, good sized, real light brown colored bear, and he was just completely enamored with that, the size of it and the color of it, and he'd never seen anything like that before. But he was up high in them rims, working his way around that way. And the Paradise Trail, I think, comes just underneath that point, and then it drops over onto the other side. Camp here when we trailed out.
Oh, old camp stove.
Where's the stick?
What camp's this called?
Willow Patch.
Willow Patch Camp.
Some of the camp poles are still here, right here.
Oh, you found them?
There's two laying on the ground and two in
These
the
are
tree.
probably rotted out,
But I think
and it's only a partial pole.
Yeah.
those are kind of rotted out.
Still got metal and twine on them, and those two are probably rotted out.
Yeah, looks like they're probably broke off.
Where did you set your tent?
Tent would have been here where these rocks are. You can't just set the stove on these rocks.
So this would have been the stove, and it faced
Would have faced this way.
out here.
Or this, or maybe we, yeah, I think we faced it this way.
Cool. Anything cool happen here?
There used to be lots of squirrels here, and you could target practice and run out of shells.
So
Oh yeah, something did happen. We went up, your mother and I came into Elk Lake, and we went up and got the horses, and the bellmare had a brand new foal. And the John mules were kind of roughing him up, roughing the new colt up. And we brought him down here, and it was a wet, cold, nasty night, and we tied the bellmare right here, and we figured that she'd be safe right here. And the next morning, what we should have done is brought the colt in the tent, because the next morning he was dead. And that was a real bummer.
cold? Or
Yeah, the wet, cold, and the when you have mules, John mules, some of them will just flat kill a colt. When a new colt is born, if they get the opportunity, they'll kill him. And so the John mules, and then some of the Molly mules will try to mother a new foal to the point to where, you know, they're roughing the colt up a little bit. But a John mule, some of them, not all of them, but some of them will just flat kill a new foal. So he had some nicks and dings on him when we brought him down here, but we thought right here he'd be safe, you know, he'd make it through the night. What we should have just brought him in, we should have brought him in the tent, and then I'm sure he would have made it.
this is why this is called Willow Camp. Big patch of willows right underneath it. The camp was right up there in that group of big trees.
We come up here to Elk Lake for some reason, and we ended up over there at Rattlesnake, and we ran into Ann Hale and his son. And Hale didn't speak any English. His son did, and his son was telling me that they were 150 short since they turned out and got this far. And he says, we're not finding any dead ones, and we don't know where they're going because we're not finding any dead ones anywhere. And I told him, well, I can tell you where they're going. You're not sleeping with them. And a coyote comes into the bottom on the bed ground and just picks out one lamb and runs him way off down over the mountain and kills him. And you never see any sign of any dead ones. That's where your lambs are going.
So you got to sleep with them to keep them from picking them?
On the bottom side, because the coyote come in from the bottom. So if the sheep are bedded here, you got your little tent here. And if any, because they don't come into the top because they want to cut one off and run it off down over the hill and kill it. Also, usually if something comes around, a bear or something, the dogs will let you know because they're sleeping out on the outside of the tent. But a coyote could come out around, because the air's usually going downhill, they could come out right out around and come up through the brush and just spend a lot of time and pick the lamb out, cut him out, head him right down over the mountain. And that's why you don't find any dead ones. Run.
Whoa. Whoa. Those are the Kerry Lakes. And those up there are the Seven Devils, big mountain sticking up over there. Yeah. Yeah. Every time I put my camera away, I gotta get back out. Is that paradise? Paradise Lake, right down there. They used to have a sheep camp down there, but the trail crosses right here and goes out over there to that low saddle and down. So we are done with the horses. So that's as far as we can get today. July 6th.